Hello everyone and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. I am Janice B. Gordon and today I'm here with Carolina Castillo. Hello Carolina.
Hi Janice, how are you?
I'm very good. Really, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Now let me introduce your background to the listeners. 15 years commercial experience with roles in customer service, procurement and business development and loyalty solutions. Carolina has been in both sides of the negotiation tables, which is really interesting to me. So she understands the dynamics between buyers and suppliers, a multi-award-winning speaker and facilitator specialising in keynote speeches on business topics. So really interesting and welcome to the podcast, Carolina.
Thank you.
Tell us more about what phrases your clients would use to describe you and also what you do for them.
So the clients I deal with are very big clients, complex organizations with complex buying processes. So when they're looking for somebody in the sales or to buy some services as the ones I sell, they're looking for somebody they can trust, but also that somebody that can get the job done. Because when you have a complex process, you, in more occasions than not, will have multiple stakeholders. So you need somebody that has the ability to influence within their organization, but at the same time to influence on your own, in your own organization to get things done.
Which is really important. I remember when I did a project with a company, their senior salespeople, and one of the biggest problems wasn't so much the external customers, but actually internal customers. They're the ones that created all the issues and the blocks. You know, you have the big contract, it's signed, and then in finance, there's blocks, you know, that customers in Chile or China may not actually do things from the financial point of view, from your company's point of view. So that's often where things stick, or in operations, whatever it may be. So often you're right, it's the internal customers that you need to be aware of and have a relationship with, not just focus on external.
Yes, and this is very interesting because some people think that sales is only for salespeople, right? But we all have the role of influencing and doing some sort of selling exercise with internal stakeholders. And you can be in procurement, you can be in operations, you can be an analyst. Whatever you are doing, you are influencing in your organization, and that in itself is a sales exercise.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what's your view on the changing dynamics between buyers and suppliers?
So I think today, I mean, the buyers have more information at their fingertips, and that's great because they can be more informed and get a better idea of what they really want, especially when it comes to services. And what I would say is something that as a salesperson you need to be evolving and understanding that things are changing. As a salesperson, you need to be a trusted advisor to help the buyers through the buying process, give them insights. One thing that I think is very important in the relationship and in any relationship is trust. So if you can build that trust since the beginning, then you're up for a great opportunity.
Absolutely. So do you think that there's still a need for salespeople? Because, you know, there's so much. I do social selling. I met you because I was speaking at the women, and you were speaking at the Women in Sales Summit, which was brilliant. And I was talking about the art of social selling, and you were sharing lots of your experience from you know, being a woman in sales. And so what would you say about the position of a salesperson? How has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what you're selling. When you're selling some commodities, some things that could easily be bought on your own, this is a different, you might not need a salesperson. Buyers are now more influenced by reviews, by what other people is saying about the product or about the service in itself, and that generates a huge influence. But when it comes to buying bespoke services, let me ask you, how much has it really changed? We have more technology. RFPs can come online. We have artificial intelligence helping identify the specific suppliers. But overall, if the user and the buyer is human, they need a human on the other side to reassure them that their needs have been heard, that they're understood, and that the service is going to be delivered to the standard they're requesting.
And I think that's a great point, that business to business is people to people. And what you said about that their needs are being heard, AI can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
In the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think in the world nowadays, there seems to be like a threat, like robots are going to take over our jobs. But actually, it's just our roles are changing, and they've always changed. And they're just changing even more. It's not that we're going to be redundant. We just have to change with it.
Absolutely. I was at the World Procurement Congress early in the year, and they were talking a lot about artificial intelligence and how they're using this to help buyers source and find things. And of course, I asked myself the question, will our jobs in sales will ever be redundant? And I honestly believe that they won't. The people will have, like they have today, more resources to be better informed, to do things quicker. But at the same time, they will always, I feel there always be the need of somebody on the other side to help them and assist with the closure of the sale. And very important for us in sales is to evolve and to become that trusted advisor that I was talking about earlier.
Absolutely. And evolving, that involves evolving and involving all people. And so what's your view on diversity in sales? Do you think it's an issue? And if so, why? And what can we do to solve some of these issues?
So that's an interesting question. If when you talk about diversity, you mean gender. I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of sales women, all of them hugely successful, people that I follow and that I learn a lot from. So my experience probably or might have been very different to other people. So if I see that, it's like, well, I don't really see a problem. However, in this sales conference we went to, that was a common topic. It's like there's not a lot of women in sales, which was something that surprised me. That made me reflect and think, well, what might be the problem? And it might be that it's a bit of confidence sometimes to do the role and what it takes to do it. In sales, you need confidence, you need resilience. It's very competitive, it's quite challenging. So it's helping women feel confident that they could achieve outstanding results because they can in sales. I'm very supportive of organizations that are promoting sales. Last year, one of my colleagues was awarded by the Women in Sales Awards, and that was truly inspirational for all of us. So if we are entering those awards and promoting other women or nominating other women, we create a ripple effect that makes this profession more admirable for women out there that could turn into excellent professionals in this industry.
I think it's really interesting you say that actually you're working in an environment where there are a lot of women in sales. I wonder if you've chosen those environments, or whether, why is that? Why is it that other people say this is a real issue, but actually think, actually, I haven't had that issue? Why do you think that's been the case?
I don't know. I mean, it might be a thing of timing. I think I've been fortunate enough that every time I come to a certain point, there's always been few women before me. And when I started years ago in credit, I remember people talking about that, oh, there was no women, there were team leaders at the time. And by the time I arrived, there were a few. So I wasn't the first. So the only thing I could say is I can only thank all the women before me that are opening these spaces for us. And I guess it leaves me with a great responsibility to continue to open that space even more for women that are coming behind.
And yeah, it's interesting that what you say as well about confidence, because you know you don't seem like someone that's lacking in confidence, and I wonder if you know uh, if that is a real issue for women, or is it that there are it's systemic in that if there hasn't been women in this position before, they're less likely to get that position going forward, and then someone gets through because they're different, they have a different language, then they get labeled with these things around confidence. If it was equal, that was men and women, then I wonder if this confidence would be an issue at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good challenge. I think, you know, I'd be interested to hear what women say about that are considering or not considering the sales profession. Why are they not considering that? Is it because they don't feel they can do it? That they feel this an environment that I feel too much pressure? Or what is it that they are saying that they feel they cannot do it? I mean, I think about myself, and I came from a very different background. My background wasn't sales, was procurement, and I was very excited of the idea of sales because I thought that is very challenging, and that's something that is going to test me. And I'm not the only woman that likes challenge. So like me, I'm sure that there is people there, and I don't know if the impressions they have from sales are misconceptions, and we need to kill those myths, right? Clarify and demystify what the sales profession is, so people feel at least less feel that they are not jumping into the unknown. What
Yeah.
is really required from them? Because it's not necessarily about the confidence itself, but the unknown of what they're getting into.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to be fair, that sales has been very much the masculine in the words, and I still hear it now. They talk about crushing targets, all of these words, and you just think, really, honestly, I think that women are brilliant at sales because they're great at building relationships, and I think the world has changed. The advertising world has changed, where it's you know forcing it down your throat, and it's more on an equal footing between buyers and sellers, and it's very much relationship based and really adding value. So I think that they have a real advantage. I just don't feel that there's enough in there, and I think that the more women that go into the sales environment, the more the language will change, which will probably encourage more women in, because not only do they see people doing it, so there's role models as is possible, but also I think the language is something that has put people off in the past.
Yeah.
Great. So I was really interested in the quote from your father. Can you tell us that, what he said?
Yeah, my dad always said, I mean, he is a financial director still there, but he has a lot of respect for the sales profession, and he has always told me sales is the first line in the P&L. So that's how important it is. So that's funny. That's how I grew up, and that's something my dad always said. Not that at the time I ever considered sales, but now that I'm in sales, it's like, of course, that phrase comes to my head.
Which I think is brilliant. You know, sales, I could say sales is the engine of all companies. You know, without sales, it doesn't exist. And it shouldn't be a department. It should be a mission of the whole company. Everyone is in sales. And I've got last few questions for you. What is the one tried and tested strategy that you would offer listeners to help them to scale their sales?
I think, I mean, I will encourage everybody to think about the basics, right? I mean, there's plenty of books that you can listen, and actually continuously listening to those different books or reading. I'm a listener. It helps people remind themselves of different tactics or strategies they can do. I think one thing that is very important, and I often see that is forgotten, is as simple as listening to the client. My most successful meetings for me are those where the client speaks 80% of the time. I will, of course, send questions and encourage that create the environment for them to speak. But if they're speaking, then they are venting what their real concerns are, and then you can assess if you can help them or not. Because sometimes you can, but a lot of times, if you've done your validation in advance, it's very likely that you can help them. So listen, give them the space. I see it at all levels. Sometimes it's like, please let the client speak. And it drives me mad when it doesn't happen. So I think that is very important, and it should never be forgotten at any level.
Excellent. So lastly, if you're on a desert island, what would be the one thing you took with you?
So as I said, I like listening to books. So if there was any access to some power, then something to connect and be able to listen to books constantly, or if not the traditional books. But if you're taking me to a desert island and it's really nothing there, and I can take one piece of personal item, I'll take a toothbrush, because I've seen this program of Bear Grylls where they get into an island, and I just can't imagine more than one day without a toothbrush. So I'll take that with me.
It's really funny. I thought about, you're on your own, but you're worried about bad breath.
It's always important. I'm a public speaker, right? So it comes with it.
Brilliant. Okay, Carolina, how can people contact you?
Oh, great. I have a website. People can contact me through my website. Is carotalks, carotalks.wordpress.com, or they can contact me through LinkedIn. I'm very active in LinkedIn as well, so it's another way of contacting me.
Excellent, thank you. Carolina, thank you for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast.
Thank you for having me, Janice. It's a pleasure.